Have you ever looked at the person you love the most and suddenly wondered, do I really know them at all? That's the thought that hit me like a thunderbolt the night I discovered my husband had been hiding something so shocking, so impossible, that my entire world tilted on its axis. A secret twin. A man who looked exactly like him, yet a stranger I had never been told about. But before that night, before my life was torn in two, I thought we were the perfect couple. Married for 7 years, comfortable, happy, with routines that felt safe and familiar. He worked long hours, but I never doubted him. I never thought to question why sometimes his stories didn't add up, or why he'd come home acting distant on random nights. You trust your husband, right? You believe his excuses. I told myself I was just overthinking. Still, tiny cracks were there. I remember once seeing him walking across the street, except he swore he was at work across town. I waved, but he didn't wave back. I told myself maybe it wasn't him, maybe I imagined it. But deep down a cold unease had begun to grow, and that's when the strange little things began piling up. A neighbour swore they saw him jogging early in the morning, when I knew for a fact he was still asleep beside me. A co-worker mentioned chatting with him about a meeting, except he swore he wasn't even at the office that day. Innocent mix-ups, right? Or was the man I married living a double life? What would you do if the person you trusted most started showing signs that didn't make sense? Would you confront them? Would you pretend nothing was wrong? Could you handle the thought that maybe your reality wasn't what you thought it was? I tried to ignore it. I tried to keep believing. But the unease became a storm I couldn't push away. I had to know. And the truth? It was far darker, stranger, and more twisted than even my worst fears. Because when I finally uncovered the truth, I realized I hadn't been living with just one man. I had been married to a secret neither of us could escape. If you want to see how this shocking story ends, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what happens next, because trust me, this is only the beginning. The night everything began to unravel, I came home late from visiting my sister. My husband's car was already in the driveway, lights glowing softly through the curtains. Nothing unusual. Until I stepped inside. There he was, standing in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. He looked at me with a tired smile, kissed my forehead, and asked about my day. Everything felt normal. Too normal. But then, my phone buzzed. A text from his co-worker. "Tell your husband thanks again for staying late to help. He's a lifesaver." My heart stopped. How could that be? He was right there in front of me, smiling, talking, breathing, and yet someone swore he was still at the office. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead I played along, pretending nothing was wrong. Why? Because fear had already taken root. What if there was an explanation I wasn't ready to hear? What if asking the wrong question shattered everything? I studied him closely that night. His posture, his voice, the way he stirred his drink. Familiar, but something about him felt slightly off. Subtle differences I couldn't quite name. Had they always been there? Or was I only noticing them now because doubt was clouding my mind? Here's the cruelest part. When you begin to doubt someone you love, you start doubting yourself too. Was I paranoid, overthinking, making up shadows in the dark, or was this the universe screaming at me to wake up? As we sat at dinner, my stomach churned with questions I couldn't ask. My fork clinked against the plate as I forced a smile, and deep inside, a chilling thought settled like ice. What if the man across from me wasn't really him at all? Tell me, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have exposed him right there at the table? Or would you have waited, watching, pretending just like I did? But here's where it gets worse. Later that night, while he slept beside me, I noticed something on his wrist. A scar I had never seen before, a scar my husband did not have. That scar haunted me. I stared at it in the dim glow of our bedroom lamp, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might wake him. My husband had no scar like that. I knew every freckle, every mark, every curve of his skin, and yet there it was, a jagged line, healed long ago, like a story carved into flesh I had never read before. The air felt heavy. My hands trembled as I pulled the blanket over him, hiding him. But my mind wouldn't stop racing. Who was sleeping beside me? The next morning, I decided to test him. Nothing obvious, just small things only my husband would know. His favorite coffee mug, the way he folded the newspaper, the inside joke about the neighbor's squeaky shoes. At first, he passed easily, too easily, almost rehearsed. But then I asked about the trip we took to the lake 2 summers ago. The memory was burned into me. How we laughed when the canoe tipped, how he teased me about nearly losing my hat. His smile froze. He hesitated. And then he said, "That wasn't me. You must be mixing it up." My blood ran cold. Mixing it up? How could I confuse something so vivid, so personal? That was the moment I knew. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. I wanted to confront him, to demand the truth. But a whisper of fear held me back. What if he wasn't my husband at all? What if pressing for answers put me in danger? The real one? Would you have confronted him right away, or would you have played along, collecting proof like I did? That night, while he slept again, I checked his phone. And what I found there nearly stopped my heart. The screen glowed in the dark, lighting up his face as he breathed softly beside me. I unlocked his phone with the code I knew by heart. Our code. My chest tightened as the home screen appeared, so familiar, so ordinary, until I saw it. A string of messages from a number I didn't recognize. My fingers shook as I opened the thread. The first line made my stomach lurch. "You almost slipped today. She's starting to notice." My eyes blurred. The words didn't make sense. She's starting to notice. Notice what? Slip about what? My pulse hammered as I scrolled further. Don't worry. She has no idea there are 2 of us. 2 of us. The room spun. I gripped the phone tighter, afraid I'd drop it and wake him. My husband didn't have a twin. He'd never once mentioned a brother. But the scar, the hesitation about the lake, the strange messages. Suddenly, the puzzles started clicking together in the most horrifying way. I covered my mouth, desperate not to scream. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to grab my keys, to get out before he opened his eyes. But I stayed frozen, torn between terror and curiosity. If there really were 2 of them, then who had I married? Who was lying next to me now? And then, his phone buzzed in my hands. A new message appeared right before my eyes. "She's too close. We need to decide what to do with her." The blood drained from my face. My hands went numb. This wasn't just deception anymore. This was danger. Real, immediate danger. I quickly slipped the phone back where I found it and lay down pretending to sleep, my body rigid under the blanket. But inside, my mind screamed with one terrifying truth. I wasn't just caught in a secret. I was caught in a trap. What would you do? Stay silent and hope to survive, or confront the stranger you once called your husband? Because the next morning, when he looked at me with that same warm smile, I knew something, or someone, was watching me far too closely. The sunlight poured through the curtains, but instead of warmth, it felt like a spotlight burning into me. He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You didn't sleep much, did you?" His tone was soft, almost caring, but every word dripped with suspicion. I forced a smile, my lips trembling. "Just a headache," I lied. But inside, every nerve in my body was screaming. Had he seen me on his phone? Did he know I'd read the messages? As he got dressed, I noticed something. His watch. Yesterday, wasn't imagining the impossible. 2 men living one life. He caught me staring and tilted his head. Something wrong? His eyes lingered a moment too long, probing, testing. I shook my head quickly. No, just tired. He smiled again, that same perfect smile, and left for work. But as the door closed, my body collapsed against the chair. My hands shook uncontrollably. The messages replayed in my mind. She's too close. We need to decide what to do with her. What would they decide? My heart clenched with the answer I didn't want to face. Then, my phone vibrated. A notification. Unknown number. With trembling fingers, I opened it. One message. Just 5 chilling words. He's not the only one. I gasped so loudly I dropped my phone. My vision blurred. Not the only one. Did that mean there were more than 2? The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. My marriage wasn't just a lie, it was a trap, far bigger than I could understand. And yet, against all logic, one thought burned in my mind. I needed answers, even if finding them meant stepping closer to the danger that surrounded me. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the photographs tucked away in the old photo box. Something had been nagging at me, a detail I hadn't noticed before. The way the men in each picture stood, one always slightly in the background, one always in front. At first, I thought it was coincidence, but now, paired with the messages and the mysterious scar, I couldn't ignore it. I took out the box, my fingers trembling. The photos spanned years, vacations, birthdays, anniversaries, and there he was, or rather, they were. 2 faces, identical in every feature, always slightly offset in the background like shadows. My heart raced as I flipped through, noticing the tiniest differences. A hand scar here, a left-handed habit there, a subtle tilt of the head that seemed almost deliberate. I froze on one picture of him holding our daughter. One face looked gentle and familiar, the other cold, almost calculating. My stomach churned. Could someone have lived in my husband's place for years without me noticing? The worst part was realizing my family might have known. My mother had casually remarked once, "Sometimes he reminds me of someone else," a vague comment I'd brushed off at the time, but now the meaning hit me like a fist. Had they been protecting me or hiding me from the truth? A sudden noise made me jump. The apartment felt too quiet, the shadows too long. I hugged the photo box to my chest, heart pounding. Each picture seemed to stare back, a silent accusation. Someone out there had been living my husband's life while I trust photos, or would you have turned away terrified of what you might find? Because as I flipped to the last photograph, the one hidden beneath the rest, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A boy, standing behind my husband with the same face, watching. The next day, I decided to follow him, not recklessly, but carefully. My heart thudded in my chest as I trailed him from a distance, keeping to the shadows. He seemed normal at first, walking into a small cafe and ordering coffee like any other day. But then, something caught my eye. Another woman appeared. She smiled at him, casually touching his arm. He responded with the same warmth, the same ease I had always associated with my husband. My stomach twisted. Was this part of the puzzle? Or another deception meant to confuse me further? I ducked behind a parked car, watching as they laughed softly, leaning close. The way she looked at him, the way he looked back, it was intimate, too intimate. But what terrified me most was the uncanny resemblance. This woman didn't know, but I did. Something in her presence brought out subtle differences in him. A gesture, a smile, a twitch I'd never noticed before. I scribbled notes on a small pad I always carried. Left-handed? Check. Scar above the wrist? Not visible today. Favorite coffee? Exact order? Yes. Consistent. But the nuances, the tiny discrepancies, screamed at me. Then he caught my eye, or maybe I imagined it, but for a moment that familiar smile froze, just for a split second. And in that pause, I realized something horrifying. If he noticed me noticing, then he knew. He was aware every step, every observation I made was being calculated. My mind raced. Could this other woman be part of the deception? Or was she just another layer in a life meticulously planned to trap me? The questions spun faster than my pulse. By the time he left the cafe, I had one undeniable thought. The man I married wasn't just hiding a twin, he was hiding everything. His past, his intentions, his very identity. And as I stood there, trembling, I noticed the reflection in the cafe window. There behind him a shadow, familiar, yet different. Another presence I hadn't accounted for. Someone was always watching. What would you do if the person you trusted most walked freely through your life, but someone identical lurked just out of sight? Because the moment I realized I was never alone in this, I knew there was no turning back. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every detail from the cafe, the way he smiled at her, the tiny gestures that weren't quite right, the shadow in the window. I felt like I was standing on a cliff, peering over into a darkness I couldn't name. I decided to test him subtly, the only way I knew how. Questions about trips we had taken, conversations we had shared.
Fraction of a second.
Enough. That fraction of hesitation confirmed my fears. He wasn't the man I thought I married. I needed proof. Something tangible, something he couldn't fake. I remembered the scar, the one I had noticed days ago. I compared it to what I knew about my husband. There was no match. And then a subtle detail I had almost overlooked. His handwriting on a sticky note, slightly off, different from the familiar loops and swirls I had memorized over years. Fear and curiosity warred inside me. What would you do if the person you trusted your life with suddenly showed cracks too deep to ignore? Would you confront them, or gather evidence silently, waiting for the right moment? I chose the latter. I started small, recording small conversations, comparing habits, noting inconsistencies. Each day, my list grew. Left-handed habits, unique gestures, subtle quirks. Each proof built like bricks in a wall of undeniable truth. And yet, despite the evidence, doubt still clawed at me. Could I be overreacting? Could it be stress, paranoia, exhaustion? But the scar, the messages, the cafe, the shadow, they screamed otherwise. Then came the final clue that night. He recalled the Paris trip, but misremembered a minor detail, the name of a cafe where we had laughed until our stomachs hurt. A small detail, but to me it was the smoking gun, the evidence I needed to confirm my growing suspicion. The man in my life was not my husband. And as I lay awake, heart pounding, I made a silent vow. I would uncover the truth, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew. The next morning, I couldn't shake the tension that had wrapped itself around me like a heavy blanket. Every sound in the apartment seemed amplified. The clink of the coffee mug, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint scratch of his pen on paper. And then, as I searched for more evidence, I found something that made my blood run cold. A hospital card tucked inside his wallet. Not ours, not his. A different name stared back at me, printed neatly across the top. My fingers shook as I traced it. How had I never noticed it before? How could he carry something so important, so personal, and never let me see it? I froze, heart racing. The realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. This wasn't just an oddity. This was proof, concrete evidence that the man I loved had been living a lie, perhaps for years. And it wasn't just small lies. It was a life entirely hidden from me. The next thought was almost worse. If he could hide something like this, what else had he hidden? My mind spun with possibilities. Were there more documents? More short, precise, terrifying? He isn't who you think he is. The words sent shivers down my spine. I looked over at him, asleep in the other room, peaceful, unsuspecting, or so I thought. My fingers trembled as I realized the enormity of what I had stumbled upon. This was bigger than a secret twin. It was a double life, and I was trapped in it. What would you do in that moment? Expose him and risk everything? Or gather more proof before confronting the truth? Because every choice I made now had consequences, and I was running out of time. That night, I followed him again, careful and deliberate. He entered the psychiatric wing of a hospital, something I hadn't expected. My heart pounded. Why here? Why now? Inside, the air was sterile, humming softly with machines and distant voices. And then I saw him, or rather, them, two men, identical, standing face to face. One my husband, calm and familiar. The other, darker, colder, a mirror with subtle differences. Posture, expression, even the way he held himself. The imposter spoke first. "She doesn't know you exist yet," he said in a chilling whisper, and my stomach lurched. My husband looked as confused as I had ever seen him, bewildered, afraid. And suddenly the pieces fell into place. The strange messages, the shadow in the cafe, the scar I didn't recognize. It wasn't just one man hiding something. It was two men living one life. I froze, terrified of moving, of making a sound. The imposter glanced around and smiled faintly, a predator surveying his territory. My husband's eyes met mine, panic and relief mingling there. "It's okay," he mouthed. "You're safe, just watch." The imposter's words cut through the silence. "You loved me for 15 years, he hissed. "All this time, all mine." My stomach sank. All mine. Every memory I had, every moment I thought was with my husband. Was it all a lie? I wanted to run, to scream, to confront them both. But a deeper fear rooted me to the spot. One wrong move, and everything, my life, my marriage, even my safety, could be destroyed. And then I noticed it, a slight difference in scar placement, the subtle curve of the wrist, the faint left-handed tick my husband had always had. That was the proof I needed. This wasn't just identity theft. This was obsession, deception, and danger, wrapped into one. What would you do if the person you trusted was standing next to their twin, and the twin had lived your life, while the real person suffered in silence? Could you trust your own eyes, your own instincts? I stayed hidden, watching. Every word, every movement mattered. And I knew that from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't breathe. Both men stood in front of me, identical, yet distinct in ways I could now see clearly. One was my husband, the man I had lived with, laughed with, loved. The other was the shadow, the imposter. Time, overlapping words in a chaotic, almost hypnotic rhythm. My head spun, trying to separate truth from deception. "She doesn't know," one began. "Everything she believes is a lie," the other finished. I stepped forward, desperate to take control. "Stop," I shouted, my voice shaking. "Which one of you is him? Who have I been married to all this time?" Silence fell. Then the imposter smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. "You've been married to both," he said softly. "Some days she sees me, some days him, and you never noticed." My heart hammered. I thought I knew my own life, my own marriage, but they were telling me I had been living in a carefully constructed illusion, a life shared, stolen, manipulated. I forced myself to calm down. I needed proof, I couldn't rely on memories, instincts, or fear. I had to see it, touch it, verify it. My eyes scanned them both. Left-handed habit, check. Scar placement, check. Watch orientation, check. But there was still one final test I needed. Handwriting, subtle gestures, a secret only the real husband and I shared. I asked them questions only my husband would know. Details only he and I had shared. The imposter hesitated, faltered. My husband answered correctly, instinctively, naturally. My stomach clenched. Relief, fear, anger, they all collided. And in that instant, I realized the power I had. Knowledge, proof, finally, a way to untangle the life that had been stolen from me. But just as I was about to step forward, the imposter whispered something chilling. "Do you think this is over? She belongs to us both." My blood ran cold. They weren't finished, and I wasn't safe. Not yet. I stumbled back, heart hammering, as the word sank in. She belongs to us both. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. My life, my marriage, my trust, it was all hanging by a thread, stretched between two men who shared one identity. I forced myself to breathe. Panic wouldn't help. I had to think, observe, strategize. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Every detail I had gathered over the past weeks, the scar, the handwriting, the subtle left-handed gestures, the messages, they all pointed to one undeniable truth. My husband had a twin, a shadow, and I had been unknowingly entangled in both of their lives. I took a step closer. "Why?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Why hide this? Why deceive me for so long?" They exchanged a glance. The twin smirked. "It wasn't meant to hurt you," he said, "but some things are beyond your understanding." My mind reeled. Beyond my understanding? How could something so twisted click? A door opening somewhere behind us. My heart stopped. Who else was involved in this secret? How far did it go? My stomach churned with the realization that I had only scratched the surface. What would you do if the life you built was a lie? Could you face the truth, even if it shattered everything you believed? I stood, frozen, caught between fear and determination. I had discovered the secret, but I hadn't yet discovered its full scope, and the longer I waited, the more dangerous it became. Because one thing was certain, uncovering the truth meant stepping into a world where no one could be trusted and where every step I took might change everything forever. The next days felt like walking through a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Every moment, every glance, every word carried hidden meaning. I began documenting everything: times, locations, gestures, habits. Every tiny inconsistency mattered. Every small detail could be the key to unraveling the truth completely. I even started questioning friends and family subtly, watching their reactions. Their eyes sometimes flickered, and I realized someone else must have known. Someone had been complicit, silently observing my confusion while this secret life continued around me. Then came the moment I could no longer ignore. I saw them together, fully conscious of my presence this time. The twin and my husband talking in hushed tones, aware that I was watching, yet unfazed. They moved with a rhythm I didn't understand, a silent choreography I had only glimpsed pieces of before. One of them glanced at me, my husband, I hoped, and smiled faintly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Fear, caution, and something else, calculating, careful, lurking in that expression. I felt chills run down my spine. I realized that uncovering this secret wasn't just about exposing one man, it was about understanding an entire hidden life. And the more I learned, the more dangerous it became. Each discovery brought me closer to the truth, but also closer to the consequences of knowing too much. Could I confront them both? Could I force answers without putting myself at risk? Or was the truth something I might regret discovering? And then, as I watched from the shadows, I noticed something that made my heart stop. A small, familiar object. A token only my real husband would carry. In the hands of the twin. My mind reeled. This was no ordinary deception. This was a deliberate, calculated game, and I was trapped right in the middle of it. By now, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Every day felt like a countdown to disaster. I needed answers, and I needed them face to face. I confronted him, both of them, in the living room, my hands trembling, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. "I know," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "I know about the twin. I know everything." Silence, then laughter. Not the warm laughter I remembered from years of comfort, love, but low, chilling, almost mocking. The twin smirked. "Do you really?" he asked, "or do you only think you know?" My husband's eyes were wide, honest, pleading. He finally spoke, voice breaking. "I never wanted you to find out like this. I tried to protect you. Protect us. Protect us?" I shook my head in disbelief. How could living a lie, sharing a life with your twin, be called protection? And then the truth spilled out. All the secrets, every deception, every hidden moment. My husband and his twin had alternated lives, carefully balancing appearances, memories, even our daughter's perception. Every coincidence, every unexplained absence, every tiny inconsistency, it had been deliberate, a meticulous orchestration I'd unknowingly lived inside. I felt anger, betrayal, sadness, and fear all at once. Could I forgive this? Could I ever trust him or anyone again? But before I could process it fully, the twin leaned closer, eyes cold. "And now you know. But knowing doesn't mean you're safe." A chill ran down my spine. The revelation was not the end, it was only the beginning. And I realized that in this twisted, mirrored life, the next move could change everything. If this story shocked you, hit subscribe and join us for more jaw-dropping confessions. Because the truth, it's far darker than anyone could imagine. The final confrontation left me shaken, but it also gave me clarity. I finally knew the truth. My husband had a secret twin, a shadow living parallel to his life, orchestrating a deception so intricate that for years I believed in a life that never fully existed. The emotional fallout hit me in waves. Anger, betrayal, fear, and heartbreak collided, leaving me hollow, yet strangely empowered. I realized that surviving this meant more than exposing the truth. It meant reclaiming my life, my identity, my trust in my own instincts. I confronted them one last time, carefully, deliberately. "I know everything now," I said. "I see both of you, and I know what you've done. But I'm done being part of this game." My husband looked broken, tears welling in his eyes. The twin smirked, silent, calculating, almost daring me to step further. I took a deep breath. "I'm leaving this life behind, both of you. I will not be manipulated, not anymore." And in that moment, I felt the weight lift. The truth had been revealed, the deception exposed, and though the scars remained emotional, mental, psychological, I had taken control. I was free. Could I forgive them someday? Perhaps, but I would never forget. The experience changed me, sharpened me, forced me to trust my instincts above all else. And as I walked away, I realized one thing. Some secrets are so twisted, so carefully hidden, that discovering them can feel like stepping into a nightmare. The world is full of hidden truth, and sometimes the people you trust the most have secrets that can change everything.